This episode is brought to you by Disney's Lilo and Stitch, only in theaters this Memorial Day. A reimagining of Disney's animated classic, Lilo and Stitch is the wildly funny and touching story of a lonely Hawaiian girl, Lilo, and the fugitive alien Stitch, who helps to mend her broken family. Lilo and Stitch crashes into theaters May 23rd. Rated PG. Get tickets now.
I'm Cindy Lauper. My psoriasis was all over, even on my scalp, which may mean 4 times the risk for psoriatic arthritis. But Cosentyx works on both.
Cosentyx secukinumab is prescribed for adults with moderate to severe plaque psoriasis 300 milligram dose and adults with active psoriatic arthritis 150 milligram dose. Don't use if you're allergic to Cosentyx. Before starting, get checked for tuberculosis. An increased risk of infections and lowered ability to fight them may occur, like tuberculosis or other serious bacterial, fungal, or viral infections. Some are fatal. Tell your doctor if you have an infection or symptoms like fevers, sweats, chills, muscle aches, or cough, had a vaccine or plan to, or if inflammatory bowel disease symptoms develop or worsen. Serious allergic reactions and severe eczema-like skin reactions may occur. Learn more at Cosentyx.com or 1-844-COSENTYX. Ask your doctor about Cosentyx.
Buckeye Talk is about to begin. Hey, 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 come on in.
Welcome back to Buckeye Talk. I'm Stephen Means, that's Stefan Krajisnik, and that's Andrew Gillis as we continue on with our Woody Hayes Greatest Buckeye Challenge. Yesterday we revealed the first round results for the Ryan Day and Jim Tressel regions, and today we're on to the Paul Brown region. Paul Brown, National Championship head coach for Ohio State. Headlining this region is Eddie George, Heisman Trophy winner. Was here from 1992 to 1995. He is now Bowling Green's head coach. And he's going up against the 30 seed. Brian Hartline was a wide receiver from 2005 to 2008, had a quality NFL career, and since 2019, he has been the official wide receivers coach, and he was the interim wide receivers coach in 2018. He actually came back the year before that as a GA before taking over the role. And now he has essentially put Ohio State's wide receiver room in a world that maybe we'll never see again and have never seen really anywhere where he's got 5 straight first-round draft picks. Stefan, let me ask you a question. I know we're only taking into account the coaching measure, but so much. But if we were talking about Brian Hartline, the assistant coach, is there a case that he should get a win over Eddie George? That's stronger. Like, would he be a higher seed if we were just talking about Brian Hartline, the assistant coach?
Yeah, he would be. But then, then we're introducing Woody Hayes and Jim Tressel and guys like that into the conversation. It gets a little tougher. I think part of the reason we decided not to is because Woody Hayes had however many years it was like to build his greatest Buckeye resume, whereas Archie Griffin had 4 years to build greatest Buckeye resume. So that's kind of why. So that's why I struggle with it. I think Hartline didn't do enough as a player to be able to compete with Eddie George, even with the accomplishments as a coach. I'm still going Eddie George. Yeah, Hartline's. If we're taking coaching into account, I think Hartline's higher on this list. I think I still go Eddie George though.
Is that how you look at it, Andrew?
Yeah, because it's like, is it even fair to consider coaches? Like, that's the other question where it's like, is it worth it? Because look, Eddie George is at Bowling Green. Like, maybe one day he's at Ohio State, and we have this conversation in 6 years. It's like, does he go higher than 3? I guess there's not really much room to climb, but like, we'll see how this bracket unfolds. So, I still think it's Eddie. I think even when you consider the coaching, but I think especially if you don't, it's even more Eddie. So yeah, this to me was one of the easier ones that I did.
Yeah, if Hartline, if we took coaching a little bit more into account, he'd be a higher seed, and maybe he would get a matchup where he can go. But like, when you're a 30 seed, you're gonna have to face Eddie George, who's maybe the second best player in Ohio State history. That's always gonna be tough.
The only reason I think he's the outlier in considering what he is as a coach is because there's two people on this bracket who are not here if Brian Hartline doesn't exist. But I think I agree, and so do our texters. Eddie George got 79% of the vote.
Oh, that's actually closer than I thought it was going to be. So
I think it's because there's two people on this bracket who are here because they signed up to play for Brian Hartline. And I mean, I genuinely think that's what it is because he was fine as a player. I think his career in terms of statistics might actually be comparable to a healthy Julian Fleming in 2022, where it's like, okay, you're good, but you're not. Could you get play in the NFL? Yes. And he ended up maximizing his NFL career, obviously, and being better than maybe even his college career. But him as a coach, he's in such a different stratosphere as a coach that I think it's what pushed. I think it's why he made the bracket. And it's also how he ends up getting 21% of the votes there. Okay, Orlando Pace, Chris Olave. This one's more lopsided than I thought it would be. I'm assuming both of you guys are going to pick Orlando Pace. Is that fair?
Yeah.
Why?
I think Orlando Pace is helped by the fact that he is so renowned and dominant and celebrated at a position where not many people are.
Mm-hmm.
So when you talk about offensive line, it's easy to forget names. It's easy to be like, oh, who was the starting left tackle on that team? Who was the starting center on that team? Who was the starting right guard on that team? It's easy to forget. When you say offensive line Ohio State, there is literally one name that's going to come up every single time.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're in the Heisman conversation as an offensive lineman, dude. Absolute dude.
Andrew, did you take any consideration of Chris Olave?
No, and one of the reasons that I didn't is because I think it matters when, like, look, you have all of these accolades and you have all of these awards, and, like, yeah, Chris Olave was all Big Ten for a few years. Orlando Pace, the Outland Trophy, Jim Parker Trophy, unanimous All-American, Big Ten Most Valuable Player of the Year, blah, 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 blah. You go down the line. I think being the best ever at your position mattered to me. Being the best, like, you could debate, and maybe this is a future pod, we could debate the best quarterback, running back, tight end, linebacker. We could debate everything at Ohio State. I don't know how much of a debate we're having for best tackle ever at Ohio State. Frankly, best offensive lineman ever at Ohio State. So to me, that mattered. And to me, him being that type of player was enough for me. And that was, I thought that, I mean, look, he was just so good. And when you're that good and you change the way that people talk about a position, I think that helps.
I think Chris Olave got a bad draw for the first round.
He 100% did.
I think of anybody we've talked about of the lower seeds, he's got the worst draw. Because how many people have the moments he has in his 4 years as an Ohio State football player? When you just list off all the moments. I mean, his introduction to the Ohio State fan base was the Michigan game with 2 touchdowns and a block punt. And then what he did in the Clemson game, where that entire story arc of being the guy who broke off the route where he wasn't supposed to, and it led to the interception for a team who may have won a national championship. And then to redeem that the following year by just roasting Clemson in the Sugar Bowl and getting his revenge. He's Ohio State's all-time leader in passing catches. And, I mean, we're talking about the way Ohio State recruits receiver. Chris Olave was not a 5-star. He didn't arrive with the recruiting pedigree that Emeka Egbuka and Jack Smith-Njigba and Garrett Wilson and Marvin Harrison had, where 3 of those guys were 5-stars and Marvin Harrison was a top 90 recruit. He was a 3-star kid that Brian Day didn't even go out to see him. He was going out to see the quarterback who ended up at Indiana. And because he was watching the quarterback, he saw Chris Olave. And so Chris Olave ends up at Ohio State. And, I mean, we talk a lot about that 2018 recruiting class and how it really didn't live up to the hype. If you go at the lowest rated guys, he's the 3rd lowest rated guy in that class. And that's the first round draft pick. The run Ohio State is on is great. He and Garrett started that run. He got a bad draw. You guys are right. It's Orlando Pace, and I'm not going to make the case for Chris Olave to win over Orlando Pace. But I do think there is a draw where if Chris Olave just gets a few more votes when we're tallying up names, and let's just say he's the 19 seed, I think he could have gone on an Elite 8 run in this thing. But unfortunately, that's just, sometimes you get a bad draw in the NCAA tournament. Mike Doss, Rex Kern. Mike Doss is number 11 seed. safety from 1999 to 02, famously came back for the 02 season as the guy who could have went pro and helped win that team to a national championship. And then Rex Kern, another super soft member who won national championship 1968 to 1970. Andrew, you first. Doss or Kern?
I went with Mike Doss. Something that I thought was interesting when I was looking him up. He won a state championship at every level. He won in high school, he won in college at Ohio State, and he won in the NFL, which I thought was just a really unique kind of tidbit to him. But yeah, to me, Mike Doss was the pick here. I think really like the accolades and the Michigan and the title were a lot. And I know Rex Kern had that. But maybe this was my recency bias. Maybe this was my, overlooking the guy from a previous generation, but like 3-time first team All Big Ten, 2-time first team All American, national championship, won the Jack Tatum Trophy, unanimous All American, a local kid from Ohio. Like, I went with Mike Doss.
The Touchdown Club of Columbus used to have all these really fun awards, and they got rid of them. They had a Jack Tatum Award. They had a Chic Harley Award, and they just stopped doing them after 2018. It's a little disappointing. Any pushback, Stefan? Doss, Kern? Are you Doss?
I voted Doss.
And now
I actually think this is the one I struggle with the most. I think I struggled with this one more than any other one in the bracket. And I know we're going to come back to the Chris Carter debate, but like, man, Rex Kern had some moments and some like he beating OJ Simpson's kind of badass.
Yeah, it is.
Like beating USC then is memorable. So I hate that I went with Doss as well, because I really don't want us to overlook how good Rex Kern was, again, in an era where you're doing a million things on the field. Like he deserves his accolades, and I don't know I'm curious to see what the voting divide here is, because if he won, I would not be upset.
For the record, Orlando Pace beat Chris Olave, 89% of the votes for Orlando Pace. Doss got 62% of the votes.
I thought it was
got 38%. I mean, Mike Doss, I think you can draw a direct line from Jack Tatum to Mike Doss to Caleb Downs. Oh, no, I'm sorry. Jack Tatum, Mike Doss, Malik Hooker, Caleb Downs. That's the lineage. Okay, we got one more tight one. Chic Harley versus Justin Fields. So, Andrew, you've got the guy who's the reason why Ohio Stadium exists and Ryan Day's first starting quarterback. Good luck. Make your pick.
Yeah. This was hard. This was one of the harder ones. I did go Chic Harley.
I think that's the right.
You mentioned that. We talked about the quote about the way that he played, which was that he it was a cross between music and cannon fire, and it brought your heart up to your ears. Look, Chic Harley, his numbers retired. 3-time consensus All Big Ten. 3-time first team All Big Ten. He's a member of the College Football Hall of Fame. I understand it's a different era, and this was why it was so hard, because Chic Harley, 1916, 17, and 18, or 16, 17, and 19, he was a consensus All-American. Justin Fields was a second-team All-American in 2019. Mm-hmm. The game literally was 100 years apart. So it was one of those things where it's like, oh, man, like, how do you do that? So I didn't almost even think it was fair to compare aura or anything like that in this conversation, because
one is the reason the stadium exists.
Well, that, but it's like one, it's like if you played college football before the United States entered World War I, I don't think aura was exactly something that people knew about or had. So it's like, I didn't consider that. So frankly, this to me was an accolades conversation. And you mentioned the stadium a lot. I get it. But to me, when you compare these players, it's like, who's the greater Buckeye? I'll go with the guy who had the bigger accolades, even though, like, again, I mentioned this with like some of the linemen. Chic Harley was 5'8", 165. If you're 5'8", 165 and you say, hey, Ryan Day, I would like to play football at Ohio State, he's going to laugh at you and say, well, we have a position open as a team manager. because you're not going to play football here. You're not going to play. It's just not going to happen. And Chic Harley is one of the greatest Buckeyes of all time. So I went with him.
I also went with Chic Harley. Maybe the 14-19 matchup is our 5-12, where you know there's always going to be an upset that gets picked. Yeah, I mean, he's got everything. Like every category is elite. So I don't really have much hesitation there. We should also, a texter pointed out to us, I don't know if we said this on the pod when we did the music and a cannon fire quote. That was written by James Thurber, who is a legend in his own right. So if he talks about you like that, yeah, you win.
No.
You get the upset.
I knew that.
I don't know if we mentioned that that's where the quote came from. So I want to make sure that we gave Thurber his credit because dog, legend, and if you get described like that by that guy, you win.
Yeah,
you move on.
I knew it was Thurber quote. That's why I said we got to get back to that. Okay, from the 419, I got to say Justin Fields because I'm guessing a lot of people probably don't say him. One of my personal favorites, so I'd love to shout him out. His accolades: he's a 2-time Big Ten champ. He got to the national championship game. He's a Heisman Trophy finalist. Led one of the best OSU teams I've seen, the 2019 team. Also, didn't throw a single interception till the Michigan State game in 2019. That's true. And it's a funny story. This is me talking now. Funny story. We were asking him that entire week about how he hadn't thrown an interception since his senior year at high school at Harrison and down in Georgia. And essentially, then he threw the interception against Michigan State that Saturday and went, yeah, all you were asking me about it and you jinxed me. And then he didn't throw another interception until the Fiesta Bowl against Clemson. He threw 2 that game. Team success, same as the first one. Memorable moments. I mean, good God, these can go on for days. First of all, welcome to Columbus run will always be great. He's talking about the 50-yard run against Florida Atlantic where he kept it on a read play. And it was like, and that's why they went and got Justin Fields. And Gus Johnson's like, hello, Columbus. It was awesome. Injury comeback throws against the team up north in Clemson, chef's kiss. Also back to the no interception thing. I'll never forget that one interview where they asked about the picks. I didn't see this before. And he said something like, well, to be honest, I just hope I never throw one. And then he threw one. Michigan stuff, team up north stuff speaks for itself. Blowout and made them duck in 2020. Overall, Buckeye Orr, genuinely still my favorite quarterback I've seen in my lifetime. Electric runner, and the deep throws were just amazing. On top of this, the man never lost a regular season game. Blew out Michigan, got the revenge on Clemson, never had to worry about much. He always showed out in the big games. Overall, my favorite OSU player probably ever. I think if the Michigan game in 2020 doesn't get canceled, Justin Fields is higher. Because then he's the quarterback responsible for potentially getting Jim Harbaugh fired. Because again, Ryan Day was not talking about hanging 121, 22, 23, or 24. He was talking about the 2020 season. And that was the year they had Justin Fields, Chris Olave, and Garrett Wilson. They would have hung I don't know if they got to 100 because that's hard. But they scored 56 and 62 the 2 years prior. So you do the math on what that team would have done in 2020. From the 412, first of all, Stephen, it appears to me that a user can respond to the survey multiple times. I'll try to fill out about 1,000 forms so that Vic Janowitz and Chic Harley make the next round. Respect to you. Game in the system. There's nothing wrong with that. Stephen, here's the scoop on Chic. Chic Harley, the Buckeye Blueprint. Who was Chic Harley? Born on September 15th, 1895 in Chicago, hence the nickname Chic. Harley moved to Columbus, Ohio at the age of 12. He became a multi-sport phenom at East High School, where his football games often outdrew Ohio State at Ohio Field. Recruited by Ohio State's Phi Gamma Delta fraternity, he enrolled in 1915 and played freshman football before rewriting the Buckeye history from 1916 to 1919. Harley wasn't just a player. He was a one-man revolution who transformed Ohio State from a football afterthought into a national contender. His on-field dominance, Harley was a do-it-all halfback in an era where players went both ways, excelling as a runner, passer, kicker, punter, and defensive back. His career stats and achievements are staggering, especially considering the shorter schedules and preemptive equipment of the time. His career records, he led Ohio State to a 21-1-1 record across 16, 17, and 19. He missed 18 for World War I services. Again, war can sometimes get in the way of things. That crazy old thing. His only loss was a 9-7 heartbreaker to Illinois in 1919, sealed by a last-minute field goal. Scoring tallied 201 points in 24 games, 23 touchdowns per some sources, a remarkable haul when games were lower scoring. All-American honors. He was an Ohio State first-team consensus All-American all 3 years that he played. First three-time All-American. earning spots on Walter Camp's authoritative lists. I miss those types of lists. They need to bring those back too. Bring back everything from the 1960s from a sports perspective. Big Ten championships guided the Buckeyes to their first ever titles in 1916, going 7-0, and 1917, going 8-0-1, dominating with 258 points scored to 29 allowed in 1916 alone. People just don't know. More than 100 years later, he freaking built Ohio Stadium. Stop the polling. No one born after 1950 should be allowed to vote. In a pinch, you can anoint my classmate Jack Tatum, but Chick was the man. He built the stadium. He was so awesome that the university said more people need to see this live. And they built him a stadium. It's Chic Harley. This is our first upset of the bracket. And it's because it's a 5-12 game. And those, I don't even think you can call 5-12 upsets anymore because we all know they're going to happen. Justin Fields is a phenomenal player. Chic Harley is the reason Justin Fields played where he played in Ohio Stadium. So he ain't built the freaking stadium for the dude. You know how good they have to be? You know how good you have to be at something for people to go, you know what? More people need to see you live. So let's build something bigger so they can see it. Chef's kiss. It's beautiful. Come back.
We need to add seats for Jeremiah Smith. Make it even bigger. People need to see this.
Yeah, more people need to see this. Forget TV. See it in person. Let's take our final break, and then we'll head into our final region here, the Urban Meyer region, but also Andrew and I can come back and talk about Jack Tatum some more here on Buckeye Talk.
This podcast is supported by Progressive, a leader in RV insurance. RVs are for sharing adventures with family, friends, and even your pets. So if you bring your cats and dogs along for the ride, you'll want Progressive RV insurance. They protect your cats and dogs like family by offering up to $1,000 in optional coverage for vet bills in case of an RV accident, making it a great companion for the responsible pet owner who loves to travel. See Progressive's other benefits and more when you quote RV insurance at progressive.com today. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates. Pet injuries and additional coverage and subject to policy terms.
Acura's all-new ADX, a compact SUV that isn't just built for one thing, it's precision-crafted for everything. To escape the grind with available all-wheel drive. To go with your flow with available Google built-in.
Hey Google, turn it up.
Okay, turning up the volume. And crafted to be heard with an available Bang & Olufsen premium sound system. The all-new Acura ADX, crafted to match your energy. Acura, precision-crafted performance.
Take your vibes and go, 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 go.
Google is a trademark of Google LLC.
We're back here on Buckeye Talk. Stephen Means, Stefan Krajisnik, and Andrew Gillis. Get the text 614-350-3315. We're going long simply because there's a lot of names to talk about, and we want to at least respect all of these names, even if we're not going to go long on some of these because we know they're going to make it through. Chris Spielman heads up the Urban Meyer region. He's the number 4 overall seed. Played linebacker from 1984 to 1987. He's going up against Mike Vrabel, who played linebacker from 1993 to 1996. He was also an assistant coach from 2011 to 2013. He has since been in the NFL, and he's not coming back to college no matter how many times people on Twitter try to tell you that they should go get Mike Vrabel to be their head coach. I don't think this is a conversation, Andrew. I think Chris Spielman's the one.
Yeah, Spielman.
Cool.
We don't need to have a huge.
We won't be.
It's 3-time All-American.
3-time All-American. He's awesome. He got.
Which, by the way, I'm glad you said that about Vrabel because I was so sick that 3-week period after Michigan before the Tennessee game. I was so sick of hearing Mike Vrabel's name. Yeah, I was done. Yeah. So I'm glad we don't have to have a much more significant Mike Vrabel conversation.
I do think it's funny that Mike Vrabel is coaching at the place we keep joking that Ryan Day is going to end up at, and Ryan Day's at Ohio State. I think that is very much hilarious. But yeah, Chris Spielman got 80% of the vote. JT Barrett, quarterback from 2013 to 2017. He's the number 5 seed in Emeka Ibuka as the number 28 seed. He's the other recently left Buckeye on this list. 2021 to 2024, former number 1 wide receiver in the 21 class, spent 4 years here. He's Ohio State's all-time leader in catches and second in receiving touchdowns, and now he's a first-round draft pick to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. JT Barrett is Ohio State's all-time leader in passing yards and passing touchdowns. He was not drafted, though. I don't think this one's close either because this is a Buckeye conversation and not a better player conversation. 82% of the vote for JT Barrett, Andrew. Is that
sounds right?
Okay.
Because the other part of this too is that you could say, oh, Emeka won a national championship. Well, JT snapped his ankle in the Michigan game. And what if he doesn't? I mean, look, there's first off, if JT doesn't get hurt, Cardale's not on this list, but maybe he still won the national championship anyway.
I don't know. But also, Cardell had a skill set that I think maximized while Ohio State was able to run the ball the way they were, because he could launch it down the field in the way JT Barrett couldn't. But we're not here to talk about that today. Okay, Braxton Miller, Joey Bosa. So you got teammates going up against each other. Braxton Miller as the 12 seed, started out as a quarterback here in 2011, spent 3 years as a starting quarterback, 2011, 2012, 2013. Half of the year in 2011, he took over for Joe Bosman. Would have been the starting quarterback in 2014 had he not completely ruined his shoulder going up against Clemson the year before, had to close out that season, which is how we got the JT Barrett, which is how we got the Cardell Jones. So he misses the entire 2014 season and then comes back in 2015 as a wide receiver. And then you got Joey Bosa as the number 21 seed. He was here from 2013 to 2015. He is the first of Larry Johnson's run of elite defensive linemen, though. A guy that's also on this list, Mike Vrabel and Urban Meyer, are the reason why Joey Bosa was a Buckeye to begin with. So they deserve just as much credit as well. Was this one difficult for you, Stefan?
Yeah, it was a little bit tougher just because of what you mentioned there, kind of what Joey started, in terms of the run that Ohio State had at defensive end. But I did end up going with Braxton, though.
You want to play contrarian here, Andrew?
No. I mentioned I was talking to one of my buddies about this, and this was the guy that I was texting about with Michael Jenkins when I was so mad. I was texting him, I was like, I can't believe this. So he asked some other questions, and, he said, the guy that you need to talk about is Braxton. And I thought having his kind of opinion on that was really interesting, because he had a really good point, I thought. He said Braxton Miller made Ohio State cool. Not that they weren't cool before, but he changed the program. He had incredible seasons, and that spin move is one of the best highlights I've ever seen in my entire life. And I'm not saying that's the reason you pick him, but I do think it is important to remember, when these kids are college players, you have to compare them as players. Like in college, this isn't like, oh, well, the NFL, blah, blah, blah. It's like Braxton Miller was freaking awesome in college. And I did go Braxton. It was close, but I did go Braxton.
We did these Mount Rushmores a few years back, and my case for why Braxton didn't deserve to be on the Mount Rush, no, he did deserve to be on the Mount Rushmore, was because I thought he was Allen Iverson of Ohio State football, where there's sure other people who are maybe better when you're just talking about pure talent, but how many people, to your point, Andrew, were that cool?
He was cool, man. He was cool.
He an entire generation of Ohio State fans, it's Braxton Miller, man. It's Braxton Miller. It's the way. It's not just that they were winning; it was the way they were winning that made it so cool with Braxton Miller. And it didn't matter if he was playing quarterback or wide receiver; it was just kind of the same thing. From the 416, Joey Bosa, great stats all around, national championship, walk-off sack against Penn State and more, 3-0 against Michigan. Buckeye aura speaks for itself. He also helped them win a national championship. But I think it's Braxton Miller. And our texters, this one was, I think how it ended up was probably the right way to go about this. 68% said Braxton Miller. 32% said Joey Bosa. And I think that's right. I think that's right. Joey Bosa, that's a tough matchup for Joey Bosa. But I think Joey is kind of in the same vein as Chase, where it's about those guys are awesome players, but you can't tell the Urban Meyer era of college football here at Ohio State without mentioning Braxton Miller and what he was as a quarterback. Final game. I really wish this dude had a win over Michigan, because I think this could have been an interesting conversation.
Mm-hmm.
13 seed Ted Ginn Jr., wide receiver from 2004 to 06. CJ Stroud, quarterback from 2020 to 2022, and he was a starter in 21 and 22. Andrew, Ted Ginn won. And I think it's because CJ Stroud is the ultimate victim of Ohio State's lack of success against Michigan over the last couple of years.
I think that's a fair point. And I think Ted Ginn had, you mentioned the cool factor with Braxton Miller. Ted Ginn had that cool factor. Go look at, and this was one of the emotional picks that I made, because I was sitting here on Sunday night as I was looking. We're recording this on Monday. I was sitting through on Sunday night, kind of doing some research and stuff. One of the things that I like doing is looking back at old highlight tapes. And you look up Ted Ginn's highlight tapes. I think one of them is set to Black Betty, which is a great song for that. And it's just he runs like a gazelle. Like he's running and it looks like he's not even trying. And he's flying by everybody. And I think he had that cool oh my goodness factor that not a lot of other people had. The Michigan stuff matters, I think, here. I think aura matters as well. Like Stephen has talked about this. Like CJ Stroud faced a lot of criticism in his time at Ohio State, and then, his career ends, and I think people had started to turn, and they definitely turned after that Georgia game. But like CJ Stroud was awesome, but I think Ted Ginn in a greatest Buckeye conversation was my vote. That Ted Ginn was awesome, and I think when you compare the Michigan success and then the aura too, I think that matters.
The fact that Ohio State still hasn't beaten Michigan is also helping turn the tide on CJ in that conversation, because you can't, like, CJ's not the only quarterback who didn't beat Michigan anymore. It's a program issue and not just a quarterback issue anymore. But it's just Stefan, his resume looks so differently if they win one of those games.
Yeah, he did not get much help from those around him to kind of help his resume. Because even 2021 as a whole, we're talking about pretty bad defense and not doing enough to help him win. Like CJ did everything he could, man.
I think he might have a case for a top 4 seed if they don't lose to Michigan those 2 years. If, let's just say, Michigan doesn't...
I think we'd have to have a national title, but...
Everybody was anticipating Georgia Ohio State in 21. That offense versus Georgia's defense. That's fireworks. And given how Alabama was able to throw the ball all over Georgia before their receivers got hurt, I think Ohio State would have beat Georgia that year. Because that was the difference between the SEC championship game and the national championship game, is they had John Mechie and J-Mo in the SEC championship game. They didn't have John Mechie and J-Mo in the Natty, and Bryce Young had nobody to throw the ball to. So you're telling me you give CJ... I mean, CJ kind of threw all over him in 2022 with Marv in Emeka. So you're telling me you give him Jackson Smith, the Jigba, Garrett Wilson, and Chris Olave fully healthy? I think Ohio State might win a national championship. And again, if he... But then you add on the fact that I am about 95% sure if they don't lose to Michigan in 2021, CJ wins the Heisman Trophy. Because he was already the favorite going into that game. He would have used that game, won that game, and then won the Big Ten championship game. They would have been 12-1, firmly in the playoff. And he already had momentum. He'd have a Heisman Trophy, and maybe he probably would have won a national championship. And these are hypotheticals, but let's just say that's the path it takes. He's in the conversation with like Joe Burrow and Cam Newton in terms of guys who won the Natty and the Heisman the same year. So that's how it happens in 2021. In 2022, Michigan and Ohio State are 2-3. They're both undefeated. And they also lost to Georgia by a point, and they wouldn't have been playing Georgia in the opening round. They'd have been playing TCU, because I think they would have been the 1 seed playing TCU that year, and he would have won the Heisman. Now, I think, Andrew, 2022 is a little bit more difficult because Caleb Williams is cool and Heisman Trophy winner. All these trophy voters are dumb, and sometimes you see a dude running around with his head cut off in the backfield and then throwing a ball 30 yards down the field, and people love that a lot.
Well, I mean, it was cool. Like, we don't have to, it was cool.
It wasn't cool. Cool doesn't equal best, though. It just makes it cool. And so I think his case would have been just as strong. It's just the field would have had a stronger case as well. So maybe he doesn't, but he finishes second and not fourth, which is what he finished. And okay, maybe he finished, but what if he wins it and then wins a national title? Then he's still in the conversation with Cam Newton and Joe Burrow as I won a Natty and a national championship in the same year. I just think that's a different resume that nobody else on this list would have. Troy Smith almost had it, but they lost a national championship game. Archie's has 2 Heisman trophies, but he doesn't have a national championship. It just it's those Michigan losses for CJ are the difference between him being 20th and only getting 37% of the vote, while Ted Ginn Jr. got 63% of the vote, and CJ Stroud maybe being a top 4 seed.
There's this like run of Michigan in the last couple of years has really kind of, especially when you lay it out in this format, has really kind of made you think. I think he's probably the face of a group of people where, what if Ohio State beat Michigan in 2024 and then the playoff unfolds the same way where they do play Texas, and like Jack's like I understand it all, but like, or even if you beat Michigan in 2023 and then you lose to Alabama, like if you just give these guys one Michigan win, I think Marvin Harrison, like I said, Marvin Harrison Jr., we're probably talking about him differently because maybe he's a Heisman Trophy winner in that scenario. Maybe he's in the different conversation with Jack Sawyer. with CJ, the career was there, like you said, the stats were there, the accolades were there, the talent was there, the ability was there, but a lot of your aura and a lot of your moments can be gained from beating Michigan, right?
Yeah.
A lot of those moments can be gained. Like imagine, I'm not using a specific play, but imagine, he throws a bomb and they go up by 7 with 8 minutes left against Michigan. For a lot of people, that's going to be a moment that they remember for a long time. I'm not even saying anything specific. He throws a last second Hail Mary and they win. No,
yeah.
I'm not even saying anything crazy. You have a great play against Michigan. People are going to remember that. Like, was Anthony Gonzalez went up and made that great catch against Michigan in the Big House like 20 years ago, and then Ohio State scored later in that drive. Like, people remember stuff like that. And if you make a great throw in a Michigan game like that and you win, people will remember that. And I think CJ was definitely hurt by that. And you're right. He is probably the poster child and the face of that group of people to say, man, we probably talk about them in a little bit of a different way had they just won one of those games at least.
Poster child for maybe the Connor Salians thing.
I mean, you just said
Maybe.
it earlier, Stefan. Jack Sawyer's 7 on this list. And if they don't win a national championship, he might not be on the list at all. Okay. CJ doesn't have anything. He doesn't have any Big Ten championships. He doesn't have a Heisman Trophy. He doesn't have any records. He doesn't have any wins over Michigan. And he's number 20. So where does he go if he has those things?
Yeah.
I think the
immediate NFL success probably helps his case a little bit too.
It does, but there's also, I think sometimes when you're not living in it and you can go back and listen, man, CJ was kind of really, really good. You're just living in the bubble. The play that will always, I think, define the CJ Stroud era for me, and this play had nothing to do with Connor Salians. At least I think. It's more, CJ hadn't run all year, and so it had become a thing that CJ doesn't run. And then in the Michigan game, in 2021, he ran. He ran for like a 15, 20-yard touchdown. And it's his moment. It's still a competitive game. Ohio State's losing. They need to go score. CJ takes off and he gets into the end zone. And I can already see it. Oh, if they win this game, he's going to win the Heisman Trophy. And this is the moment they're going to play. This is the moment that he doesn't have the Heisman moment. Yeah, he just smacked Michigan State, but he doesn't have a moment. He's just a really good football player. This is it. This is his highlight moment. When we're looking back on his Heisman Trophy season 40 years from now, they're going to be playing this. You hadn't run all year. You finally scramble, and you go get a touchdown against Michigan. Holding, offense, number 75, 10-yard penalty, repeat. I think it was 3rd down. Thayer Munford got a holding call with Aiden Hutchinson. Like, that's the CJ Stroud era to me. CJ did the thing that we asked him to do. And it didn't matter because holding call, or because Jackson's hurt, or because Marv got knocked out of the Peach Bowl in the 3rd quarter, or the defense gave up an explosive play for the 70th time against Oregon. There was always something that had nothing to do with CJ Stroud that got in the way of CJ Stroud when he showed us every single time that he could do it. So unfortunately, CJ Stroud makes the bracket, but he loses to a guy who might be the fastest player Ohio State's ever seen. We sticking with Jack Tatum, Andrew?
Yeah.
Okay.
I read his book. They Call Me Assassin.
Well,
it was in high school.
Well, I mean, he did. The Stingley's was like a word.
Yeah.
So,
Jack Tatum was a fearsome hitter, though. So,
yeah,
I'll go with him. 2-time national champion.
Jack Tatum has won 51-49.
Wow, that rocks.
There's 4 votes between them.
That's kind of crazy.
That's insane.
It's too close to call. Does that mean we have to go to like paper balloting? We have to do a hand recount once we get to the end of the list?
Probably.
I'm sure Stephen would love more work. Thank you, Gillis.
Exactly what I want to do with my time. 51% to 49%. Jack Tatum moves on. So that's the first round. Our second round is going to be fun. We'll start the second round tomorrow. That will be the Sweet 16. The matchups are going to be Archie Griffin as the number 1 seed against number 16, Howard Hopalong Cassidy. Troy Smith is the number 2 seed versus number 15 seed Jack Tatum, who barely buzzer beater beats out Chris Carter.
Now we need to find out, is Jack Tatum going to be too exhausted to win again, or does he just get hot?
Yeah.
Got through the first round, now he's unstoppable.
Number 3, Eddie George versus number 19, Chic Harley. Number 4, Chris Spielman versus number 13, Ted Ginn Jr. Number 5, JT Barrett versus number 12, Braxton Miller, which I think is going to be a fun conversation tomorrow. Number 6, Orlando Pace versus number 11, Mike Doss. Number 7, Jack Sawyer versus number 10, James Laurinaitis. I think that might be fun too. And number 8, Ezekiel Elliott versus number 9, AJ Hawk. So all but one of the higher seeds won their first round matchups. The only loser is Chris Carter is Justin Fields losing to Chic Harley as a 19 seed. What a great first round. And now we can start to really have some heated debates, because I think all these are interesting conversations about past, present, and future with the Ohio State Buckeyes. Get the text 614-350-3315. This survey is out right now. It's a 2-week free trial, so you'll get to participate in this completely for free and really get essentially the rest of the month of May for free. And then recruiting starts to pick right back up. Though recruiting never ends, man. Recruiting never sleeps, which means Andrew never sleeps. 614-350-3315. 2-week free trial, $3.99 after that. For Stefan Krajisnik and Andrew Gillis, I'm Stephen Means, and that was Buckeye Talk.